Okay, everyone, as promised, here's a video of like me going through the structures. So starting from the top, the parietal bone. So these two are parietal bones, this one here and this one here. And then our frontal bone is just gonna be this whole big thing in the front with the glabella right here, and the supraorbital foramen or notch are gonna be these little divots on top here. And then I'm gonna skip the sinuses just because I'm not too sure about all the sinuses, so I'm just ask someone else. And then ethmoid bone, that is gonna be like this whole big thing around here, basically. And so let me open it up so I can show you guys the structures. So the cerebriform plate, that's gonna be like this here and this here. This is the cerebriform plate. It's gonna surround the crista galli. This like crest is the crista galli, and this is like just the inside of the skull. Crista galli, cerebriform plates. And then perpendicular plate, so that's gonna be inside the little nasal cavity, but it's gonna be like the top part of the septum here. So this part is the perpendicular plate. Yeah, the top part. And then skipping the next sinus. And then the superior nasal concha is really difficult to see. Like, I was having trouble pointing it out from like the textbook and stuff. So I'm just gonna I'm not gonna point that out just because I'm not 100% sure on it. But the middle one, the middle nasal concha is this one. And then the middle nasal meatus is right under it, with the inferior nasal concha and then the inferior nasal meatus under that. And so, but the inferior one is its own whole bone, so it's not part of the ethmoid bone. And then moving on to the temporal bone, I think I should probably connect this back for that. So the temporal bone is going to be this right here. That's the temporal bone. It has 3 embryonic divisions. So the squamish division is going to be the outside part here. The petrous division is going to be basically just like that same thing, but like just inside. So petrous division. And then the tympanic division is just going to be like this little circle right here, tympanic division. And so next we have the zygomatic process of the temporal bone, which is going to be this, and external acoustic meatus, which is going to be inside the tympanic division. That's the external acoustic meatus. And the internal acoustic meatus, hold on, that one is going to be this hole right here, the third hole from the bottom, internal acoustic meatus. And then the styloid process, you see, y'all see that pointy part? How am I going to do this? That styloid process. And then the mandibular fossa. Basically, when I take this jaw out, it sits in the mandibular fossa. The fossa is right there. And then mastoid foramen, that is going to be this little hole right here, because this is the mastoid process. So then the little foramen, the little hole behind it, is called the mastoid foramen, And then the stylomastoid foramen, that's going to be the hole behind the styloid and the mastoid process. So that's this hole right here, because this is the styloid process and this is the mastoid process. So the hole behind it, stylomastoid foramen. And then moving on to the occipital bone. Oops. Whatever. Occipital, bruh. The occipital bone is in the back of the head. It's like starting here and then continuing down. So when I flip it upside down, I don't even have to. You can just see the occipital condyles here. And then when we look inside the skull, we can see the internal occipital protuberance. And when we look outside, the external occipital protuberance. See, the inside is there, the internal one is there, the external occipital protuberance is right there. And then the hypoglossal canal, that is going to be see these the occipital condyles? Y'all see that canal right under them, the hole right under them? That's going to be where the hypoglossal canal is. Because it's a canal because it's like a cave that goes all the way through. Like we can see all the way through it. And then the internal occipital crest is this crest right here. So remember, the internal occipital protuberance is here. The internal occipital crest is right above it. And then the superior nuchal lines, superior nuchal lines are there. Now you can see them good. These are the superior nuchal lines, and the inferior ones are just like below it. It's hard to see it. There you go. Inferior nuchal lines. And then the foramen magnum, just this huge hole. Can't miss it. Foramen magnum of the occipital bone. And then next, sphenoid bone. That's like also inside here. You can see it better. It's like this whole big thing here. So the structures here are the greater and less, well, this is the lesser wing. The one on top is the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone, and the one underneath, these things, and the spaces under here, that is the greater wings of the sphenoid bone. And then we have two different pterygoid processes. Where even are those? Oh. Pterygoid processes are these things. We have the lateral ones, lateral lamina, and then we have the medial lamina with hemolus. Right? And then we have the foramen ovale. Foramen ovale here. This is the foramen ovale. This is it on this side. It looks a little bit more oval than the hole next to it. So this is the foramen ovale. The small one next to it is foramen spinosum, and the third one up is the foramen rotundum. So it's foramen spinosum, foramen ovale, and then foramen rotundum. And then anterior and posterior clinoid processes. So the anterior clinoid process is this. The posterior, I'm wrong. Anterior clinoid process is this. Posterior clinoid process are the corners here. Anterior clinoid process, posterior clinoid process. And then we have three structures of the sella turcica, which is basically the whole, this thing here. The fossa in between here is the hypophyseal fossa. And then dorsum sellae is here. Dorsum means posterior, remember? So the one in posteriorly, dorsum sellae. And then tuberculum sellae is this one here. tuberculum stellate. And then the carotid sulcus, I believe that's like this stuff on the sides, the ones, carotid sulcus, just like on the sides of that. And then we have the zygomatic bone, which is this thing here. It has one structure, the temporal process. And then maxillary bone, this whole thing in the front. It has incisive foramen, which you have to go inside. That's the incisive foramen. And then it has alveolar processes, these things. And then it has infraorbital foramen, which is this. And then it has anterior nasal spine, which is like this little, see a little spine thing? See how it juts out right there? Anterior nasal spine. And then we have the palatine bone, which is basically, the palatine bone is just this here. It has a couple structures. The greater palatine foramen, which is where? Bruh. Oh, y'all see those foramen? Those holes? That one and this one? Greater palatine foramen. And then we have the horizontal plate, which is just like this part. Just the end part. Not this part. Just this part here. Horizontal plate. And then we have posterior nasal spine, which is this little point right here. Because remember, we had the anterior nasal spine, the little point in the front. And then we have inferior nasal concha. Again, remember this thing right here. And then the inferior nasal meatus. And then we have vomer, which is the bottom part of this septum thing. Remember, the top part was the, what was it? Perpendicular plate, I think. Anyways, this bottom part is the vomer bone. And then the lacrimal. What? Oh, the lacrimal is like here. That's the lacrimal bone. Nasolacrimal canal. Y'all see that right there? Nasolacrimal canal. Because it goes to the nose from the lacrimal bone. And then we have the mandible, which is like this bottom part, this bottom bone here. The structures there, we have the structures of the body, which are the alveolar crests. And then we have the mental protuberance, which is where it juts out at the chin. And then we have the mental foramen, which are these holes. And then we have the angle, like the part that makes your jaw angle, that. And then we have these are all, and then the next ones are the structures of the ramus, which is this part. And then so for the ramus, we have the coronoid process, which is this thing. And then this is the coronoid process. And then this thing, that is the mandibular notch. And then the condylar process is this. This is the head, this is the neck, I believe. And then mandibular foramen. Oh. Where is that? Here it is. This is the mandibular foramen. It's right behind the lingula, which is the next structure. This lingula with the mandibular foramen. Okay, and then that's everything. Bye.